Welcome to episode 18 of the Red Leaf Retrocast. This has turned into quite the surprise for an episode. Not only do we have a special guest, but we also have a returning host of all things. I must first cut to our boy Josh, because he's back.
No one expects the return of the OGs.
The original RLR host is back, and I am excited to have you. Josh, how have you been?
Oh shit, dude. It's been busy, man. Between getting caught up in school and working and moving, it's been a couple interesting months, that's for sure. I apologize for missing, but
since we've had you.
I apologize for being gone for anybody that missed me, but I will be back as often as I can because things are still pretty hectic. But I was able to get a Sunday off for once, so.
Yeah, it was quite the surprise because of our special guest. We're recording a bit later in the day on a Sunday, and Colin, you're here, but we are missing Kevin, of all people. So luckily Josh has filled the hole.
Yeah, with my return.
You got some large Connecticut-like shoes to fill on that one.
Great. Like I was about to say, though, with my return, I brought back the cardboard cutout of Console Kevin, so.
You did bring out someone to fight one-on-one with that can't defend himself.
Yeah, which is good, because I'd probably still lose that fight.
But anyways, now to introduce the man of the hour to steal all of your thunder, Josh.
Oh, not my
It's my man, Travis, otherwise known as Hibiki, man of the Slam Pigs podcast, and Hibiki TMD, found on YouTube. How are you?
Hey guys, thank you for having me. Man, I've been meaning to come on here forever. I'm so excited to be a guest.
He is jacked. He's been working out specifically for this episode. Maybe just a couple thumbs, because the theme is your pick, but we'll get to that in a minute. But first, before that, we got Colin returning for yet another episode. How you doing?
Hello, Internet. I am doing great. It's been quite a hectic couple weeks at work, but I'm managing. I've still been managing to play some games, watch some animes. Overall, can't complain.
Boy.
Yeah.
That's what matters in life. You gotta watch the anime, play games. I've been watching wrestling myself.
Nice.
But that's not why we're here. We're here because we're the Red Leaf Retrocast, where we pick a theme. Yes, we are. Where we pick a theme, and then we pick a number of games based on the theme, and then we have some discussion topics as well. What the Red Leaf Retrocast has become basically Giant Bomb, if you must say, or an IGN-type cast, where we're not just retro gaming anymore, we're also retro anime, modern gaming, and now, coming out this week, tomorrow, in fact, upon recording, is the first episode brought to us by the people, for the people. I've heard the cries, and the wrestling cast is coming out. Ooh. And speaking of wrestling, Travis, you are a major wrestling fan, hence the Slam Pigs podcast. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I can continue plugging the thing that we're here for.
You can check my social media out on Twitter at the Hibiki TMD, Hibiki TMD on YouTube. It's kind of like pro wrestling, retro gaming, a hybrid.
I'll have to send you a follow now.
Yeah, in fact, if you're listening, you should just hop on right now, click on the descriptions below of all of that stuff he said. And hopefully he'll get to 700 subscribers instead of just 600 for now.
7. Nice.
A nice milestone you just hit there, Travis.
And you said it's wrestling?
Just all the nerdy things I like to talk about. It's basically a channel of stuff that I'm into. And hopefully, and I've met tons of people like you and, best of both worlds type of thing. But yeah, Slam Pigs podcast, reset button, never drew a dime. All kinds of ventures, Hibiki Pro, our creator wrestler online federation. All the goodness is there. Hibiki Quickie game reviews. It's actually Godzilla month on the channel. Yes, that's where you can catch me.
Absolutely, I can dig it.
Oh, and it's great to just talk, argue, maybe agree. I don't know. Agreeing seems to be the thing that comes second these days.
Well, usually when I come on the cast, JD likes to argue with me about how I'm wrong about games, but we'll see how it goes when we get there.
Well, you didn't pick any of the games.
No, I didn't even...
Kevin's picks.
Yeah, I didn't even know I was going to be here until a few days ago. So,
which is great. I'm happy to have you back. Colin's happy to have you back. I think this is the first time you and Colin have been on the same episode. Travis is here, and you guys just met. Travis is happy you're back, and he's only been here for about 5 minutes.
Sick. I mean, I think I've already told Shit. Huge fan, by the way, when you were playing Resident Evil. Colin, I think I may have told you that already. When you were playing Resident Evil and you're like, I'm going to try my best not to swear. Oh, fuck. It's a thing.
Well, I'm curious. The way we usually intro here after we get to know each other a little bit is I want to know what you've been playing besides the games for the podcast. Oh, we'll definitely be talking sporadically about the Neo Geo itself.
Yeah, I noticed.
Not that anyone can afford one. I think the Neo...
Fair enough.
Well, nobody wants to spend $300+ on a single game.
No.
There is the alternative to the Neo Geo CD if you like load times. Well, we are the Red Leaf Retrocast. You can find us on YouTube, Moosen Spiel, or a plethora of audio outlets such as iTunes, Google Play, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, and many more. Again, we do more than just retro gaming now. It's been over a year.
Yep.
Congratulations to us.
Yeah, it's been a very wild
little
ride for sure.
Little shoulder tap there. And we've had a growing fan base of all kinds, hence why we're kind of spreading out. But that's okay. Our discussion today will lead us into Toys R Us closing down. EA finally removes its pay-to-win mechanic from Star Wars Battlefront 2.
I'm still
Nintendo Switch
the
indie
devil.
titles being better on Steam, or being better than on Steam. We got a nice little conversation, discussion, argument coming up later about Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat, and then we'll get into our theme, which is, if you couldn't guess, is fighting games, picked by our man, Travis, the guest.
Ooh,
And,
fighting games.
Travis, I'm curious, why did you pick fighting games as your theme of choice?
I guess I kind of equate it to like comfort food, for gaming comfort food. This genre, the fighting game genre, I have so many memories with my friends. For one, sorry, my cats are going nuts upstairs. I just love it. I can always pick up a good fighter, a good one, not a shitty one, any day, and just dive in. And if anything, it takes my mind out of the sick, cruel world we live in. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's not everybody's thing, but for me, it is. It's one of my favorite genres, if not my favorite, and it's nothing like letting some good old aggression kicking somebody's ass.
Cool. That's fair.
Sure, and when you say fighting games, most people like to think of just your 2D one-on-one, 1v1 fighters, such as the Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat. But really, it's so much more than that now. You have 3D fighters. You have it's not just the Street Fighter. There's also King of Fighters and Killer Instinct and one others. Kind of spoiling for some of the games later.
I'm
but that's
surprised
okay.
nobody said like Soul Calibur. I wasn't sure if that was in the range or not.
Well, no one picked Soul Fighters, which was the first one. But, you know, there's such a plethora. Or, yeah, Soul Edge. Something like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, with a plethora of titles, you know, just like what we keep saying with our RPG episode, there can be another. We can pick the same theme twice.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Yeah. I'm waiting for the next RPG one. Let me tell you what.
What?
Let me tell you what.
I tell you what.
Well, Josh, what have you been playing in your free time?
Well,
even though you've been super busy, it's been the game of life.
I've been playing the game of life. You know, I've been watching this new thing called My Weight. So I've been really trying to stay with that. Stay with that. For games,
is that the one where you stare at the mirror and watch your waistline grow, or do the single push up out of bed, or is it so much more than that?
There's a few things, you know. I go back and forth between, you know, self-loathing to sometimes avoiding a scale to looking into a mirror and saying, you know, you can do this, and then trying to do this, and you know, it's been a wild ride. But seriously though, for games, I haven't really been playing too much. I've been trying to play some Fortnite with some friends. I've been trying to play Final Fantasy 12 and 9 at the same time, because I'm sure, as you've noticed, my live streams just haven't been around because of the struggle, basically.
Right.
I've bought a bunch of new games, though. Like, I bought Kirby, I got Monster Hunter World, I bought Final Fantasy Origins, Legend of Dragoon, and Final Fantasy VI. So I've been purchasing things, but just unfortunately haven't had the time to play them. But I bought Monster Hunter last week. I played it once so far, and it's upsetting because the game's awesome.
Oh, I put over 70 hours in that game.
Oh, I'm about to. As soon as I get the time, let me tell you, I'm gonna play the shit out of that game. I've already beat the first world on Kirby, Kirby Super Pals or whatever it's called.
Star Allies?
Star Allies, that's it. I keep butchering the name. The new Kirby game. I played a world. I played the first world of that. That was super fun and cute. But yeah, been doing what I can do.
Well, I heard Colin laugh. Why don't you get your 2 cents in on what you've been playing, Colin?
I'm still kind of behind. I'm still trying to get to the end of Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm
Still
almost to
haven't
the
played
end.
that.
I'm just kind of making my way through the Frozen Wilds DLC section before getting to the final mission.
Oh, that's an 8-hour journey right there alone.
Yeah, and I think I'm about at least 3 hours in.
Huh.
Have you met Giant Ice Bear yet?
Not quite yet. But I did resurrect the tall neck. And then...
Oh, okay. You're getting there.
I'm about
You're
to take on the
Ice
chieftain.
Bear of Death.
And to a lesser extent, off and on, I've been playing Nier Automata.
That looks awesome.
Okay.
That game looks awesome.
It's a lot of fun.
It
I
sure
really
is.
wanted to try it out.
It's gotten to a very interesting section of the game after a certain thing happens that I will not spoil. But
The certain thing on that thing where the event happens? Oh my god, I know what you're talking about.
I'm sure you do. And off and on, lately, I've been coming back to Titan Souls.
Titan Souls. What's that?
Right.
It's basically... It's like a top-down, pixelated version of Shadow of the Colossus, but it's a lot different.
Jesus.
The main mechanic is that your character has a bow and a single arrow, and when you fire that arrow, you can summon it back to you. And then you have to take on a whole bunch of these giant bosses. It's basically all boss fights throughout the game, but what makes it really hard is that you die in one hit. But so do the bosses once you hit them in the weak spot. So it's going to take a lot of tries for each one.
Okay.
But then once you actually do beat that boss, it feels so satisfying.
That's like with Sultan Sanctuary. I was playing that with a friend a while ago.
Oh, yeah.
That was a fun one, too.
Yeah, the 2D Dark Souls game.
Yeah.
Well,
What about you,
I've been
JD?
playing... I played Kirby.
Mm-hmm.
Played a lot of Monster Hunter World, but now I've moved on to Ni no Kuni 2 that I've been actually Twitch streaming since I got it.
Isn't
how's that going?
Isn't that the samurai version of Dark Souls?
Ni no Kuni 2?
No, what am I thinking?
You're way off.
Yeah, okay.
No, Ni no Kuni 2
you were thinking
is an
Neo.
anime...
That's
Nio.
I'm thinking
Oh yeah,
Neo.
you're thinking of Neo.
My bad.
Yeah. No, Ni no Kuni 2 is this anime art style Studio Ghibli feel of a game, and it has a cute kind of cheesy story, but they've really changed a lot of aspects up to it from game 1 to game 2, so it doesn't feel like you're playing the exact same game, but the spirit is still there.
Oh, okay.
I will definitely be talking more about it on the Modern Game cast, but I've been having a blast playing it. It's very relaxing.
Cool. I've played the first game all the way through, so maybe I'll check that one out in the future.
Well, come check out the Twitch streams. I'm just plugging it in and anytime I feel like playing.
Well, if I have time.
But I got bored and I started playing the Zelda Twilight Princess on the Wii.
Mm-hmm.
Never really truly dove into it before, but holy crap, that first 60 to 90 minutes is a task. It is boring.
Oh,
It is a little boring. I was able to get through it when I had played it on the remaster on the Wii U. I was able to get through it because I was playing it with my cousin Dirtbag Gaming at the time. So that's how I was able to get through that little long haul right there.
Yeah, but once you get past that, the world just really opens up with the whole interdimensional thing going on. It's really quite cool and different.
It is.
So I'm fully vested in the game now, but man.
Actually, speaking of Zelda, to kind of sidetrack, whenever I do get the chance to play my Switch, I do play Zelda, But I'm starting Master Mode, and one of the things I've done is not only am I playing it Master Mode, but I'm playing it in French too, so it's been a lot harder than it was before.
Well, I wish I could play it in German, but most things aren't translated in the German unless I live in Germany.
Well, you can change it. You just gotta go to your system settings.
Well, I don't think I think it's English, French, Spanish, and that's it.
Oh, shit, I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of games that come to our part of the world don't have the German language option. Many of them don't. But anyways, I think we've reached the point where we're past the introductions, and we got some discussion topics here of some recent news that I thought would be nice to talk about. And let's start off with your nostalgia closing down, which is Toys R Us.
No!
To be honest, I kind of seen this coming a long time ago, and I'm actually not too upset about it.
Oh, yeah?
It's not very nostalgic.
My nostalgia actually died years ago when KB Toys went away, because that was my go-to as a kid and my preferred.
Oh, yeah.
You might not be wrong on that one.
Toys R Us is overpriced hot garbage. It always has been. It always will be on baby clothes. Video games, my God. And you've got to be such a sucker at the end of the day to buy your games from Toys R Us, because you're not just paying full price. You're paying Jeffrey prices, which are
like $20,
astronomical.
$30 on top of the market. There is no reason you should go there and buy a game. I remember going there. The only times I've ever went was to like buy Beyblades or Yu-Gi-Oh cards when I was a kid. And that was it.
But yeah, and it's also ironic that the founder of Toys R Us passed away like a week later. Not to make light, but yeah, just weird how that worked out. But yeah, I'm not sad to see it go at all.
Yeah, I didn't really go to Toys R Us all that much as a kid, but when I did, it could be pretty fun. I remember in the gaming section they had games you could like do hands-on trials, and one time there was Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, neat.
So that was basically my first time getting my hands on that one, and it confused the heck out of me at the time.
Yeah, it's still pretty
as most
confusing.
Final Fantasies do.
It's still pretty confusing. It's really good, but, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Let alone...
Yeah, I thought that was kind of strange later on, too.
Let alone Final Fantasy VII.
Well, that was like the hot shit at the time, I think, so they wanted to attract more young faces.
Well, they definitely did.
Yeah, I used to go to Toys R Us quite a bit as a kid. We used to get the big game catalog, or not the game catalog, just their like Christmas catalog. Mm-hmm. There was another big Macy's catalog as well that would include Toys R Us stuff in there. And I remember as a kid, I would circle things that I want, and then my parents would jokingly take me to Toys R Us and look at all the things that were actually in stock or how much they would cost.
Yeah,
and slowly, it was just a fun little thing we would do to not spend money.
Here's all the toys that you want. We're not going to get
Here's
them,
all the toys that you want. We can't afford. What do you want? I guess I want the cheap Hasbro basketball hoop, and I was maybe 3 years old. But I mean, as I got the, how often did anyone actually go to Toys R Us? Is it really just your nostalgia just wants the store to exist, or do you actually go in there on a frequent basis and get something? Because if I want, say, a board game, I just go to Amazon now.
I would just go to Walmart. Why wait for it to get delivered?
I think for a lot of people back in the day, it wasn't so much about getting stuff from there as much as just the opportunity to window shop so many cool different toys, and getting that but to do that with your parents and such. I mean,
I kind of seen this happening anyway. You know, because not a lot of kids are playing with too many toys, it seems, at least in where I live. A lot of them are playing with the electronic, like iPads and stuff, or watching YouTube videos. It doesn't really look like they're playing with too many toys.
No, the board game days are essentially done.
Yeah, like it's really interesting. Like with my group of friends, I had a night where we all came over, we had drinks and played board games. It was awesome. They all loved it. But if I were to try to do that with like with younger people, it's weird to say younger people, but I'm sure you guys know the age group I'm talking about. I'm talking like teenagers at least. They're probably going to be like, why would we sit down and play like Monopoly or Sorry or Risk? Like, why would we want to do that?
Yeah, especially when you can just stay home and just do that same thing on a computer.
Yeah.
And if you get bored with the game, you can just switch to a new one right then and there. You don't have to set it up or anything.
Yeah.
It's, well, a lot of people can't let go of this nostalgia, and there's actually I put a link in the agenda here. There's actually been a GoFundMe that's been created
So
to
stupid.
help save Toys R Us.
I can't believe...
And it's already... Yeah, and this GoFundMe has already made over $200 million just in donations to keep it alive.
That's crazy. Whoever made this GoFundMe account just got away with the biggest scam.
Oh yeah, he could probably just take it all and be like, I opened a store. Like, that's it. And called it Toys R Us again.
No, he's gonna if he's gonna do anything, it'd be Toys ARE Us. Like, if he even does that, this guy or person, whoever started this GoFundMe, he made and it sucks, a pretty good predatory business move, and said, hey, let's try to save Toys R Us because $200 million isn't gonna cut it.
Well, I think predatory.
This guy is making money. Yeah. But I think you can get into a lot of trouble legally. I'm not 100% sure how the GoFundMe or what laws are like for scams, but I think he'd end up either having to give everything back or he would just lose it all.
You can say.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the logistics of it, but the fact is that people are wanting to throw money away at a lost cause.
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense. It's too funny.
What do you think of this, Travis?
I think I've heard some ridiculous things for a GoFundMe, but essentially, anybody ridiculous enough to give money for this, for Toys R Us to come back, is literally giving money to be overcharged again, because Toys R Us will come back. It's like they're going to bargain their shit. It's not even bargained right now. They're going out of business. It's still, I just had a buddy of mine the other day told me he had got just closed for his son, and it was way more than it should be at a normal store. I forget the price, but ridiculous. And anyone that would donate to this, you're just not thinking.
Yeah, you'd have to have less than half of a brain cell to think that your donations or these donations are going to work.
Poor thing. Well, talking about lost cause actions, that goes into the next one. EA finally gave in, guys. Mm-hmm. It removes the pay-to-win mechanic, and I use the term loosely for unlocks all the characters.
Okay.
So basically what happened is EA and developer DICE has essentially backtracked to their 2015 Battlefront formula, and they all the characters from there and the game mechanics that are coming in an update in the future are all going to now be in the game again.
Huh.
But there is still microtransactions, even though the loot boxes are now gone. Because you can't have, I mean, let's face it, with the AAA title and investors, you can't not have microtransactions in an EA game.
Well, here's the thing, and this is what I think EA should have done in the first place. I think personally it's okay to have microtransactions in the game, but only if it's strictly cosmetic, not game altering. Only cosmetic. That's what I'm saying. You can buy different skins for different things, like recolors for certain characters, or just skins and characters and gun colors, whatever. That's fine, as long as they don't alter or buff the game, as long as it's not game changing.
Yeah.
Well, I've spoken about such actions ad nausea in the past, but just a simple sentence is just accepting the lesser of two evils doesn't make it any more scummy. More or less scummy.
But yeah, because they've been doing this for a while. Didn't they do this with the last Battlefront they came out with?
With limited content and what have you, but they've been doing shit like this with FIFA for like a decade now.
This is why I refuse to play EA games in general.
Yeah. Plus the fact they killed so many studios that they
they absorb them and then essentially just let them die. There's a massive list you can look at of what companies EA has absorbed.
Yeah.
But I think this is a little too late, and no one cares anymore about this particular Star Wars game. The damage is done. What's everyone's 2 cents on this? I'd like to hear what Travis thinks about all this.
I mean, I saw EA doing this a mile away from the enormous amount of backlash. Not to mention that they're fucking EA and they get backlash just for being AA, but the enormous amount of backlash from the Battlefront 2 stuff. It's just unfortunately that era, and it's not going away. I mean, people can backtrack all they want. They're still doing other shady stuff. It just feels like a moot point. And I don't want to say anybody's wrong for complaining about it, but at this point, it's kind of like you just got to accept it is what it is. You don't have to buy the shit. I'm glad that they've taken care of things where like you can't buff your character anymore because that's completely unfair. But yeah, as long as it's for, like you said, for skins, any of that stuff, that's what paid content should always be, in my opinion. Overwatch nails it in that department.
It's still sold about, I believe, 10 million dollars or copies. I forget what it was. We did go over the financials in a modern game episode, I believe. You can look back in that. But yeah, it made plenty of profit to what the game cost. It just wasn't what the investors were looking for, basically.
Did the game even have a story mode at least this time?
It did have a story mode, but it was a broken-ass game.
Yeah.
Because I know with Battlefront 1, I had purchased it with Alec, and then we went back to play it, and we found it didn't have a story mode. We went back to the game store the same day to return it. The problem, though, the fact that you even had to say if you have all the maps, that's that's not good.
Not to mention having enough people to play with.
Yeah,
which there weren't very many from the sounds of it.
Yeah, me and my buddy Drew on the Modern Cast, we were talking that this could lead to Disney just pulling the rights away from EA altogether. But it's Star Wars. The name value alone will sell games, no matter how good or bad it is.
I don't think Disney would pull the rights from them. EA's been. I mean, the game I imagine is good outside of how the game works not mechanically, but the way the unlocking and stuff works. I'm sure the game otherwise it's fine.
Well, one of the moves is they're bringing all the characters from 2015 over to this one, and you unlock it through in-game currency, or you can get them right away through microtransactions. But again, it's too late.
Yeah,
way too late. I mean, you're gonna get people to come back, obviously, but as now we're just repeating ourselves. It's too late. It's much too late.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of damage, I'm just nailing these segues right here.
Yeah, I've noticed.
The damage to Steam and its indie gaming market, is becoming more and more apparent, with the Nintendo Switch indie titles becoming more successful than they would be ever on Steam.
Yeah.
The best example of this was the financials coming out for a particular game that's performed much better on the Switch is a indie title called Blossom Tales.
Mm-hmm.
Little retro looking RPG game. And this is per a particular Game Informer article where the developer of Blossom Tales, the studio almost had to close down because the Steam sales were that bad.
Wow.
But then as soon as the game was released on Switch, quickly you find out that the game was selling 20 times better in comparison. And now the studio is working on perhaps another game.
I've never even heard of this game.
Me either, but I saw Jim Sterling's video on it.
Yeah, I was familiar with Blossom Tales when it came out. It just didn't seem like my kind of game. It's not a bad game by any means. It's not a great game, but it's definitely okay.
Yeah.
It's if you're up for a little nostalgic looking RPG type of experience. It's got its little puzzle thing going on. The point is, Steam and its indie titles aren't looking good with how many games seem to come out daily.
Yeah. A lot of it's just shovelware or asset flips.
Mm-hmm.
They're not
and everything gets lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. But the problem though with a lot of the PC gamers, and I'm sure you guys can agree, a lot of the games they play are ones that are popular at the time. It's not that gamers don't have time for these indie games, it's just people want to play what's popular and what's bumping because they want to either be part of the hype or just see what the hype's about. They don't really want to be they don't want to waste their times on these indie games that nobody really knows about.
I mean, yeah, and the elephant in the room, maybe not. You may agree or disagree, come at me. My opinion, consoles are always going to outsell digital, and I know PC elitists aren't going to like it, are always going to outsell digital. As much as Steam is becoming more and more household name, just casuals they're just always going to be drawn to consoles more because they're just grandparents who buy for the grandkids aren't as technologically advanced. We're getting there, but not quite yet to that extent. And it's just, especially with like the Switch, man, just like this console sells itself. You can take it anywhere. So
it's more comfortable. Like even myself, when I play a lot of the games on Steam, I hook up my controller and play that way.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually started to just look at things from a different perspective and take the Nintendo Switch as a great example and what kind of market it's become. Half the titles I have on the Switch right now are indie titles. Like Axiom Verge is a great example. Cave Story Plus, another great example. Just games that I've wanted on Steam for a while and just never really pulled the trigger on them. And then all of a sudden the Switch comes out with them. Okay, now I can play this on the go. The Switch is the new hotness, as I like saying. As lame as that phrase is.
It's selling a lot better than
a word with you.
they thought it was going to.
Oh, the Switch is a massive hit. It's Nintendo's callback to fame, basically.
Mm-hmm. I hope they don't fuck it up. Which I don't think
they're
they
not fucking anything up now. I mean,
they
fuck. Next month they're gonna sell cardboard better than VR is.
Well, that's because VR is so fucking expensive, man. Even just explaining to someone the fact that, yeah, you can take the controllers off and play with 2 players, or you can take it on the go. How do you hook it up to your TV? You just plug it in.
Yeah, just slide it into
throw it in this little box thing.
Yeah.
Bam, it's there.
Well,
with we when the Nintendo Direct happened earlier this year, and on a past episode, I believe a retro gaming episode, we looked at kind of an outlook of what's in store for the Switch in 2018, and we were not worried, so to say. We just saw that a lot of indie titles were going to be what's going to be selling the Switch in the early part of 2018 up until the summer, and that's been holding up pretty true, with the exception of, say, Kirby that's been released recently. And with a lot of these indie titles coming out month after month this year, it hasn't slowed the Switch down at all. In fact, it's just made it more apparent that third-party and indie titles are, if not just as important, than the main games to a console's longevity and success overall. And with the performance of games like Blossom Tales, that speaks volumes to just what the Switch is going to end up bringing in to just its library of games. Does anyone disagree with this?
Yeah, I agree.
Travis, did you have any more cents to throw? Any more toonies, perhaps?
I'm also, again, on this topic, I'm not surprised at all, and I fully expect to see more of it.
Oh,
all right.
Blossom Tales looks like a Zelda game.
Yeah, it does. I was gonna say.
Well, I've been looking forward to a number of indie titles coming out this year. Hollow Knight in particular. Nintendo just had a mini direct. It was only about 10 minutes long over just indie titles coming out. And they quote unquote nindies, as they like call them. So Nintendo's really.
All I know is I'm hoping that's a new Smash game coming out for the Switch.
Oh well, maybe.
I just like the best one. The logo's different. If you can look, it doesn't have the line.
Exactly. Video Game Donkey noticed that.
If different.
It's, wise man there, right there.
Donkey said it. It's got to be true.
Absolutely. Well, I don't think we've argued enough on this cast so far, so I think it's time.
Okay.
What would you guys say? You guys ready to argue with me?
Look, I just met these two. I'm not trying to lose friends here, but I guess we should do what we got to do.
Okay, well, it's time for Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat. Since we're talking about fighting games, these are arguably two of the most impactful and important fighting games to ever come out on video game consoles.
You're right, and Street Fighter is the best one, so...
Well, I mean, is it really?
It's okay to be wrong.
Look at okay.
So I'd like to... I put just some key notes here.
Mm-hmm.
you can't talk about Street Fighter without first bringing up Street Fighter 2 and its impact on not just fighting games, but the arcades in the 90s and what it's done since then. So, Travis, you are a Street Fighter 2 savant, I would like to say, with just your plethora of knowledge and opinion. Tell us a little bit about what you think its impact was. Does the franchise have longevity to hold up? Its impact on the fighting game community? Just what have you? Just start spouting words at me.
Again, this is apples and oranges, especially the humble beginnings of both, and not so humble, because both of these franchises, when they came along, they grabbed the consumers by the throats and said, let's go, and that's exactly what happened. It was a boom. Both series, in their own way, were very successful at this time. But to compare the two, like I said, is apples and oranges. One relied on complete flash, as opposed to decent fighting game mechanics, and the other game was just fighting game mechanics perfected, and that's Street Fighter, obviously. And Mortal Kombat, yes. Let's be honest, fans of the series, the early days of Mortal Kombat was all flash. There was substance, not quite as much as a Street Fighter, but yes, the fatalities, it was just that time. It was that time in society where people were ready for that. It was proven before in other games like Chiller and other games that showed gore to be a success. Splatterhouse comes to mind. So yeah, it worked. Obviously, it was a cheap and lazy thing to do, maybe, but not really, because it was well done. At least they handled it well in the early days of Mortal Kombat. But yeah, the edge for me, then that's why I've always been a Street Fighter fan at the end of the day, as opposed to Mortal Kombat. Now everything's flipped in the modern era, which is crazy for me, as I feel like Mortal Kombat X is superior to Street Fighter 5. But we'll get there. But yeah, I don't know. Not just the beginnings either. I feel like both have evolved so much. Both have tried different things. Street Fighter's tried more new things, I guess you could say, than Mortal Kombat. But full circle where we're at right now, Mortal Kombat takes the cake. But back then, for years, it was Street Fighter for me that had the edge. Quite frankly, anybody could pick up a Mortal Kombat game and just keep tapping Y on the SNES controller, and you just do that rapid punch like a Pit Fighter game. It was basically Pit Fighter with blood and guts. Yeah, a little bit more refined than Pit Fighter, but that's an unfair comparison, maybe. But it's just how I feel.
Yeah, and that's what I think is the biggest separation between the two. Is it seems like a lot of people who take the fighting game seriously lean more towards Street Fighter, whereas Mortal Kombat's a lot more, because of its violence, it's more of a fun game. I'm not saying that there's not diehard, super serious Mortal Kombat fans. I'm just saying, to me, it seems, from my own personal perspective, that a lot more serious and elite players for the fighting genre lean towards Street Fighter. And that's why I think Mortal Kombat was more popular to start, or at least seen more popular, because it was just more fun and different than Street Fighter 2, how Hibiki said, was just more fleshed out, so each character seemed unique and is able to fight so well with itself.
Does anybody have any arcade experiences with these? Because I have a plethora, and it was mostly through Mortal Kombat in bowling alleys. Because of my background in bowling, spending my entire childhood is essentially playing sports, and if I was inside, it was always at a bowling alley. And an arcade machine of Mortal Kombat was always there, whether it was Mortal Kombat 1, 2, 3, Trilogy, the list goes on. It was always, the quarters were on the Mortal Kombat machine. It wasn't until way later, in the early 2000s, when I think Street Fighter started to, let's say, become more of the more popular machine itself, because as you said, Josh, the hardcore fighting game community, or the more competitive, will always lean towards Street Fighter, because it's a more balanced game. The characters are more unique.
That's not to say Mortal Kombat doesn't have unique characters. I'm just saying each fighter feels different. Whereas, like, personally, when I played Mortal Kombat, I would play Sub-Zero or Scorpion, and they would kind of feel the same, regardless of, like, their two different
yeah, they were more or less just palette swaps of each other with
or Sub-Zero and Smoke,
looking or attacks themselves. Yeah. Even when looking at it that way, the games aren't too different, but there are just certain things that do separate it. And one of the things that definitely separated it. I'm struggling on the words here.
Differentiated?
differentiated. Thank you, Colin. So you know words.
Words and stuff.
Words and stuff. Was the violence depicted in Mortal Kombat?
Yeah.
The blood. That was the gimmick. You know, it wasn't just the gimmick of these guys pulling spines out of characters. It was just the game itself and this digitized graphics, and it impacted the ESRB. That's what led to it. That was what used to be the Spec Ops on the line, the Call of Duty. It was Mortal Kombat. That was one of the games that started it all. No, it's very interesting, and what the two games bring. I wouldn't say, if you told me right now, is Street Fighter better than Mortal Kombat, I go, well, hold the phone. I see them as two completely different games. Yes, they are both fighting games, but what they strive to do and how different they are in what they do, it's almost like a separate. They're two separate entities in themselves. If we're talking about most flashy, you could argue that would be then an argument to be made.
Yeah, not even really. Mortal Kombat's the flashier game. Like, it's based off brutality, whereas Street Fighter's always kind of been like skill based. Mortal Kombat is the flashier game, but I still think personally, I think Street Fighter is just the more enjoyable game of the two.
So there's two games. Colin, you haven't said much on this topic. What is your history between just the Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat series? Like, what is your opinion on what we've been saying so far?
Well, you guys pretty much nailed everything I was gonna say. Like, I feel like Mortal Kombat, it had more of a wider appeal. It, like, not just because of the blood and gore, but also because its gameplay was more accessible to a lot of people. It was more simplistic compared to Street Fighter 2. But then, once people got better at at Mortal Kombat and wanted something a little more challenging and deep, they migrated over to Street Fighter 2, which also had its own visual charm, even if it wasn't gory like Mortal Kombat. Now, my personal history, it wasn't so much the bowling alley as much as the roller rink.
Oh, there you go. That was the other place in the 90s.
Mine was like the next town over, like a 20-minute drive. But their arcade had nothing but fighting games. I mean, you had Street Fighter, you had Mortal Kombat, but you also had stuff like Samurai Showdown, Killer Instinct, Bloodstorm, you name it. And I think also Metal Slug. My
history with these kind of games was I'm only 24, so the arcades were kind of phasing out as I was getting older. But I remember playing mostly in laundromats when I was living with my mom. She would go do the laundry, and then I would have a few quarters and play this weird wrestling game where this guy dressed up like a blue ball.
Oh, yeah?
I don't remember which one it was, but I remember playing that all the time. That or like Colin said, Killer Instinct, or those games too.
Oh, yeah.
Which is interesting because we all kind of migrated towards picks like that for the theme.
Yeah, the arcade fighters.
Yeah, that's what a lot of us grew up with.
Yeah, that's what all the fighting games tend to be, though.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And that's where Neo Geo ended up coming in. Is they were like, if you went to a hardcore arcade, or you wanted a hard experience with an arcade, it was always some type of Neo Geo SNK type product. Mm-hmm. But the problem there was the home console version of the Neo Geo just was unattainable.
Yeah.
With its price point and high priced games. But the best fighters always seem to come from Neo Geo. Which is never, but for a home console game of those, they just never seemed to really translate well. Or did they? Depending on what you had. So, just staying on topic here of the Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat, I put in two types of games for each of what could be argued as the high point for them. So, for Street Fighter, I put in Third Strike, as per advice from the community when I put the word out, and then Mortal Kombat Trilogy. And the reason why I picked the trilogy as opposed to, say, the Shaolin Monks or what have you of the other early 2000 games of Mortal Kombat during that time seemed to focus on a large roster rather than the gameplay itself. Mm-hmm. So the trilogy is probably the best example, in my opinion, of Mortal Kombat being the most refined, had the best cast of fighters, and the most uniqueness to it. And I believe Third Strike, as much as I'm unfamiliar with it, could be said the same way about Street Fighter. So Travis, I think you're more familiar with Third Strike than any of us here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, and then maybe go into the Mortal Kombat trilogy from there?
Goes back to what I said about when they try to evolve and do new things. Third Strike, and a lot of people, I feel like that game goes under the radar a lot, and that's one of my favorite Street Fighter releases of all time because, it was goddamn time that we got something not named 2, Street Fighter 2 with like a different name, like Hyper, Turbo, Super Street Fighter 2. You know, it's just the same game. It was the Madden effect before it was the Madden effect, kind of. It was Super Street Fighter 2 introduced new characters, but after that, it was just like, it's just Third Strike was great because it was A, an all new art design, B, just new characters flat out. There were maybe 3 or 4 original characters still in the game. I might be wrong about that. I know Chun-Li, Ken, and Ryu were original characters that are in Third Strike. But other than that, it was all new guys, and for the most part, very well done. Let's not take away from Mortal Kombat Trilogy, though. That's not to say that game doesn't kick ass, because that was the first time we got a plethora, every character. And it was mind-blowing. I always played it on the 64, actually. Yeah. So it was fun. But I always prefer the PS2 version, Mortal Kombat Armageddon, which is a great game, which I'd love to review someday. But that game truly had every character, and post Deadly Alliance and Deception, which I don't know if we'll touch on that much because those games were okay. I think we just kind of accepted them at the time because after Mortal Kombat 4, you knew that series was going into 3D, which it did, and that's where it's still at. But at least now, like I said earlier, not to be a broken record about it, but the Mortal Kombat X, it's pretty much the substance as far it's a fine fighting game. The combos are fine. It seems balanced for the most part. It's a little OP sometimes. That's every fighting game, but as we see now and segue into Injustice and releases like that, which is highly successful, if not more than Mortal Kombat X. So yeah, I love both of the games, but the edge goes to Third Strike.
Armageddon was cool. Armageddon was really cool.
Yeah, that was the one I was thinking of with the completely full roster, but every character felt samey and what have you. But I picked Trilogy because of reasons I said earlier.
Couldn't you yeah. Couldn't you make your own fighter in that game too?
Yes, you could.
Yeah. Nice.
So even then, from 95 to 2002, Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat were more or less trying to do the same thing of what they were strong at. Mortal Kombat with its character roster and gimmick, and Street Fighter trying to just do something new and keep refining its its fighting mechanics. Keep using that phrase particular with Street Fighter. We spoke briefly about Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat 2. I want to go into now where we're at today with Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. Street Fighter 5 and Mortal Kombat X. Each are so different from each other at this point, but they're also very similar in many ways, and it's mostly similar in the issues we see with modern gaming, more than, say, the actual game itself. So what I mean by this is, with the microtransactions, putting out a small roster just to have paid DLC later, as an excuse to not have, their 2, 3, 4th game of the same line. Is this good? Is this bad? That's up to you and your decision. But again, that's nothing new to fighting games in particular, but is it worse in the end? Is it just falling into what we now know as modern gaming?
I've always been under the impression that having unlockables is fine if you play the game. I'm not 100% opposed to, buying a character for whatever, but I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think you should have to pay for something that's already in the game, which is why I think Street Fighter 5 ultimately not tanked, but you know what I mean, because they released the game and it wasn't even done yet. To me personally, I haven't played Mortal Kombat X yet, or XL or whatever. But just looking at that and having the little experience I do have with Street Fighter 5, I'm in the same boat as you. I love Street Fighter, but Mortal Kombat takes it this gen. But that's because there was so many problems for me personally with the online community, with trying to fight people online, then unlocking characters, and it was just a whole debacle. Whereas Mortal Kombat XL, like you said, you get everything, and it just seems like it's more fun to just jump in and fight.
Well, the thing I want to bring up between the two is Street Fighter V was an incomplete game at launch. The whole purpose of the game was for the community to buy this full price game and then to buy all of its DLC later. While Mortal Kombat X said, "Here's the game," and a year later they released XL, which was immediately a price drop, which I think in a way kind of effed over. Both games did this. They effed over the fans that bought the game day one. What a lot of these fighting games now are doing, Street Fighter V and Mortal Kombat X fell into the problem of releasing half a roster, and a year later, in the Street Fighter V case, 2 years later, releasing the rest of the game, essentially. XL just did it a little bit better because it wasn't hounded with a large DLC as opposed to what Street Fighter V did later. But I must say, as a more complete game, Mortal Kombat did take it in this gen. You could, yes, there was an option to unlock stuff in the game in the first place, while Street Fighter V has a broken in-game currency. They say you can unlock things in the game, but you really can't.
Yeah, because you gotta match people online to get the currency, and then you can't get that because you get matched with people who are masters and you're just learning the fucking game. And even when you do win, the amount you get is so trivial, it's like, well, great. It costs 100.
Well, that would be what the Star Wars thing issue was.
Mm-hmm.
What little amount you get is essentially minuscule to the end goal.
Yeah. Cool. I need to pay $100 for this thing. You got one. Well, okay.
10 hours later, I can buy a stage.
Oh, cool. I can buy the bottom half of a Ryu skin. Oh, wow.
What's funny is that was actually what killed the Dead or Alive series, was a move like this.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. Where it came out with a minuscule roster, which I think 12 characters is what we saw in the 90s. You shouldn't be seeing anything like that in 2018. Because 12 characters in the 90s was, holy crap, you fit all this on a cartridge. Mm-hmm. Well, now you have this 30 to 60 gig game, and you're telling me that you can only have 4 stages and 12 characters? No. Mortal Kombat didn't go that minuscule, but it was trying to get there. Just to get more money out of the consumer base. Mm-hmm. It's a tough sell to see where, like, how popular the games used to be, where we used to see them everywhere. And now it seems to be... I still think Mortal Kombat is more towards a consistent outwards fan base of new fans, while Street Fighter seems to be focusing on just this hardcore fighting community base.
They're sticking with old.
Okay.
They're sticking with Old Faithful.
I mean, it's okay, but what would Street Fighter be today if it tried to appeal to new fans as opposed to just keep living off the past?
The characters wouldn't be as animated, for one.
Well, okay. Does anybody have any other words before we move on to our main topic here?
That's it for me.
Our main theme.
So much for arguing.
Yeah, we all just more or less complained about the same thing. I wasn't expecting that.
Well, I just sat back saying nothing because I'm not an aficionado at fighting games.
Neither am I, but I mean, this is just kind of what I've seen and what my opinion is. Okay, Colin, you need to be more opinionated. Come on.
Hey, give me a break, man. It's my 4th one.
Yeah, I mean, if we were to try to compare two totally different games, like let's say Street Fighter versus like let's say like Dragon Ball Z Xenoverse or whatever the hell the game is called, like trying to compare those two, that'd be a little different because they have two totally different elements. Whereas Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat have the same formula, just carried out differently.
Carried out towards fighting games fighting game community. Competitively as opposed to a gimmick.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, it all depends on the user. Do you want the gimmick? Do you want more of this gimmicky fun aspect, or do you want a competitive aspect?
Yeah, so... And that appeals to a lot of people. Like, look at, like, esports is a thing because of that reason.
I think Mortal Kombat XL is the most balanced and competitive since Mortal Kombat Trilogy.
I don't have enough experience with Mortal Kombat to agree or disagree, but I really wanted to play XL.
Well, you can get it for like $10 now.
Really? Really?
Oh yeah.
Well then.
It's not an expensive game.
I think I might go pick that up tomorrow. I'll have to...
No, both games definitely fell into its own... Both franchises, it would be better put, fell into its own issue. Street Fighter fell into a realm of not releasing a game, kind of a lull period.
You mean...
Just kept relying on its current game more like a live service. While Mortal Kombat, as more consistent in releases they were, the games didn't do anything really innovative or different from each other. It was just this roster, this roster, this roster, more characters or less characters, what have you. And then all of a sudden X came out, and that's when things really picked it up for Mortal Kombat again.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyways, before we keep beating a dead horse here.
I heard Americans are pretty good with that, but let's move on.
Oh, you're not wrong.
We got our main topic, our main theme, guys. Fighters.
Yay!
Yeah.
So, if you're just joining us for the first time and you skip straight to the theme, which I totally wouldn't blame you, but you're missing out on some good conversation.
Yeah, go listen to
what
us
we
chat.
do is we have a host pick a theme, and then we each pick 2 games based on the theme.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Usually there's only 3 hosts, and we end up picking 6 games, and that's easier for us to have a more informed opinion over less games. But today we have four hosts. We each pick 2 games. Fighting games are generally more quicker to play, unless you go into heavy detail over each one. Mm-hmm. But we did pick 2 games each, and we're just going to go down each game and give our general opinion on it. Did we have fun? And then at the end, we each pick our favorite and least favorite of, in this case, the 8 titles we did play.
Yeah.
And I'd like to first start off with saying, Travis, thank you for the theme. This was a lot of fun. I finally got to delve into quite a few of these games I haven't played in. Perhaps one of them I hadn't played in 20 years. Perhaps another I wanted to dive in more deeply. And one I had never played before and always have. So thank you.
It's just really interesting that we're doing this now, because this has been a podcast we've been thinking about doing for a very long time.
Oh, for sure. It's been on the back burner, and Travis definitely finally brought this to light. And our first game was... I got the list of all the games here, so Travis, why don't you introduce our first game here?
I went with Samurai Showdown. Because it's very fresh in my mind. It was literally just Samurai Showdown month on my channel last month. I reviewed every game up through 5 special, which is 6 games in total. Not a bad game in the franchise. There are weaker entries for sure. 3 stick out. 5 actually sticks out. The first 5 specials good. Way better. They polished some things. But I picked Samurai Showdown just to do it on my channel in general and for this, because it's not like your typical 2D fighter at all. And a lot of people are thrown off. And I know, like you guys have said, and a lot of people said, it feels stiff. It feels wonky. And it's because if you go in there, balls to the wall, arms flare, and just button mash and just trying to throw out every special move or hyper combo, whatever you can, especially in the first 2 games, you're going to fall on your ass, because it's more like a chess match, as I've actually said in my reviews for the game, as opposed to a Street Fighter. It looks like a Street Fighter or King of Fighters completely. SNK, I chose to review the arcade version here, obviously the perfect version. Did see release on the SNES and Genesis, which I touched on also. The difference in those 2 games are different. And SNES was more zoomed out. The sprites were teeny tiny, but that was okay in the fact that you could actually have a room to fight in. Imagine that, as opposed to the Sega version, which was zoomed in completely. And man, the sprites were almost arcade perfect, but there was like no room to actually play the game. So that was a problem on the Sega. And also, the one of the staples in the classic character, Earthquake, who I know you're not a big fan of, JD, who is OP. I get it, but he was removed from the Sega version, and that's probably a good thing considering how zoomed in it is. It would have been completely fucking impossible to fight Earthquake. But yeah, the arcade version. I don't know which version you guys played. I'm assuming the home versions. But yeah, I love the franchise. And I love that I went back because I only played a couple of these. But now that I played every game in the series, I can flat out tell you you're doing yourself an injustice if you A, don't bother to play a good amount of these games, and B, if you give up on it within your first couple matches because you think the controls actually aren't stiff. They're responsive. It's just you have to play it different than your everyday 2D fighter.
So I had a lot of fun with this. I've only played a little bit. I have 2 different versions of the game. I have the Samurai Showdown Anthology on the Wii, and if you don't have the proper controller, playing on the Wii is like almost impossible.
Well, the AI in this game were fucking impossible to fight, man.
Oh my god, you want to talk about a game where you get your ass kicked? As Travis said, the best example is you don't go in there just button mashing or anything. I found myself just having a staring contest at the computer because there's this sweet little parry system in the game where they can just wreck your shit.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
You put it on easy, you put it on medium, you put it on super easy, you're gonna get your ass kicked eventually. But the version of the game I actually played the most was, Josh, are you ready for this?
Yes.
The 3DO version.
Oh my god,
wow.
Of course. This goddamn
So I did not play the
3DO.
Super Nintendo or Genesis version. So this game came out in 1993. It was by SNK, but for the 3DO, Crystal Dynamics actually helped develop this, as opposed to SNK themselves or Arc System Works. What separates the 3DO from the 3DO version as opposed to the Super Nintendo or Genesis is this was actually the closest, until a later release, the closest version to Arcade Perfect that you could get, which was unheard of at the time, including the game's full sprite size from the arcade version.
Oh yeah?
And it came with a full cast of 12 characters, and I believe the Genesis version, as Travis points out in one of his videos, because I did go back and watch your little Hibiki Quickie.
Hey, nice.
Yeah. Travis said that the Genesis version does not have the full cast.
Oh yeah.
So a few things I noticed while playing this. There was actually like blood death sequences, much like Mortal Kombat.
Really?
Yeah, when I first booted this up and I got parried, and it looks like the sword's like cutting the artery of your character, and he just spews blood and falls to the ground. And that's when the little referee dude in the back's like, "Yep, he's dead." It was pretty wild.
Oh,
I didn't run into any sort of hit detection issues in the game at all. However, I did notice that the 3DO version did not run at full frame. And what I mean by that is when there was a clear-cut hit for some of these attacks, the game would have sort of a slowdown. It didn't truly affect the gameplay. If anything, it made it more impactful when you did get that large hit on you. So I was like, "Oh shit! Did I just get wrecked?" What the 3DO version does, because there's only a 3-button layout. However, if you press the R button on the controller, that's how you switch between, say, the punches and kicks, or the slashes and kicks, to better say, in terms of Samurai Showdown. It's a little bit frustrating, but it makes the gameplay that much slower and more tactical. Tactical. I wanted to say tacticful, but that's not really a word.
You've got a very huge vocabulary tonight, my friend.
I'm in rare form, I guess. I want to say so many words, but only one can come out at a time. What I really liked is all the games on the list. Each fighting game seems to have its own unique aspect to it. In terms of Samurai Showdown, it has what's called a rage gauge, where as you get hit, this thing fills up, and your character essentially turns bright red, and he's not embarrassed by a cute girl saying she likes him. He's actually just really pissed off, and I guess he took too much steroids. And this is when your moves are they hit harder, they're more powered, and you can then do essentially a super special to the character. This was the game changer right there. If you ever let a computer hit its rage gauge, you're done in this game. So let me hear whatever everyone else... I took a lot of notes over this game. I really enjoyed Samurai Showdown.
For me, this is one of the last ones I played. I didn't have much time to play these, but this is one of the last ones I had played. I was very interested in what the game looked like and what the battle mechanics. And then I remembered this game seemed super familiar, and it was because I used to play this game at an arcade. And I just remember this being one of the first fighting games I had played, and I was just really intrigued with all the violence. I just couldn't believe that a game like this was available.
Colin, what did you think of the game?
Well, before I say anything, I should repeat, I am utter crap at fighting games.
Oh, I'm absolute horseshit as well.
Too. It's okay.
Fighting games just aren't really my kind of genre. Never really got into them, but I totally get why people are into it. And I played my fair share of fighting games growing up because they were everywhere. And for this podcast, I think my left thumb suffered a lot of abuse getting ready for this. I'm honestly surprised it didn't blister. But anyway.
Oh, mine did.
Anyway, Samurai Showdown. I actually did kind of grow up with this game. Like I said, it was at the roller rink where I used to go as a kid. Strangely enough, even though the place was family friendly, you still had so many violent ones like Bloodstorm and Mortal Kombat 2. Which I guess came from the then widespread ignorant belief that all video games and animated stuff were for kids. But yeah, Samurai Showdown, at the time it was pretty fun, but then when I sat down and played it lately, I couldn't really get into it. It just felt really stiff, and the moveset felt kind of lacking. But again, that could just be my lack of skill and experience with fighting games. And
it's okay. I kind of felt the same way too. As much as I did think it was interesting, I was like, okay, it's just another one of these side fighting games.
Although I did play Samurai Showdown 2 a lot as a kid because I found that one a lot more fluid and engaging. And between the two games, Jubei was always my favorite character because dual-wielding swords will never not be awesome.
Well, that's the only way you can play Dark Souls, by the way, so...
Sorry to take the wind out of your sails, guys.
I don't know if you guys ever got the chance to play one-on-one against the character Earthquake in this game.
No.
I did.
Every fighting game seems to have this fat, overlarge character these days.
Yeah, for sure.
But Samurai Showdown in 1993 really took this too far because every character up until this point felt balanced. The hit detection felt fair. But with this character Earthquake, it seemed like no matter how big this dude was, he seemed like the hitbox seemed to be just as small as every other character, but he took up the whole fucking screen, especially when he jumps, and you can't see half his goddamn body. Because anytime I fought this guy, he kicked the shit out of me. Yeah, that's when because I had watched your video after I had made my notes and everything, and to see that he wasn't in the Genesis version, I went, oh, interesting. Maybe they left him out on purpose because of that. Or maybe, because he was so big, the Genesis just couldn't handle it.
Yeah, I was about to say, maybe it was just a size thing. The Genesis was...
just couldn't handle the Earthquake.
Oh, boy.
Which, of course, now I can't stop thinking about the old wrestler. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with the game, despite how, as you said, Josh, how stiff it felt.
I didn't say that.
Or no, Colin, you said that.
Yes, I did.
Colin, you said that. You good notes.
I didn't really think it stood out too much. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna. Okay, I shouldn't say it didn't stand out. I just mean gameplay wise, it didn't feel like it stood out too much.
Well, it was the only game we chose on the list with weapons.
Oh yeah.
Was it? No.
Oh yeah. That's another thing I actually found kind of cool about Samurai Showdown is if you did the right move, you could actually knock your opponent's weapon out of their hand.
Disarming, and then you can bet your ass that guy's not having a good time.
For sure.
Yeah, there were a lot of cool, unique things in this game. Well, we all have a pretty good opinion on it, but Josh, you're taking Kevin's first pick here.
Yeah, so
for this next
Kevin's pick was War of the Monsters, developed by Incognito, published by Sony Computer Entertainment. The console that I played it on was the PS2, but it's on the PS4 network now. I'm not quite sure how much it was. I didn't go take a look. It was released January 14th, 2003 in North America, and other times, some other places. I didn't bother to write those down.
They all came out in like 2003.
Now,
It's
I
fine.
never played this game, so when I wrote this down, I wrote it's reminiscent of how the Dragon Ball Z fighter games and Open Arena fighters. Their controls kind of felt really floaty, but still really fun to throw monsters around. And I couldn't get more of a 4-hit combo with, I think his name was Congo or something. The giant
The King
King
Kong
Kong, yeah.
Yeah.
It was really fun. I felt a little floaty, so it took a little adjusting to me personally. But I love being able the fact that you can throw a monster up, and then hit him a few times, and throw them across the map, and they spin around all weird and shit. It was really funny.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Travis, what did you think of this game?
I actually looked at the DM you sent me wrong, JD, before we recorded this when you're giving me the list of games, and I read it wrong, and I played King of the Monsters.
You know,
well, that's okay. I mean, it's kind of based on the same thing. So, what do you think of King of the Monsters then?
for Neo Geo Arcade, but it's pretty much the same game, just it came out earlier. Yeah, so it's way more dumbed down graphics, but for the time, it was awesome to play this game in the arcades as a kid and on the SNES. I will say this, has aged pretty piss poorly. I mean, it's as advertised, but my god, I don't even remember back in the day being literally 2 moves in the game, like a grab and 1 attack move, and other than that, you just destroy buildings and throw them, which is kind of like the other game we're going to get to, but the other game's so much better than this, and I wish I did actually read the goddamn DM right and play War of the Monsters, but c'est la vie, this is okay. I wouldn't say go out of your way to play this. I would say go out of your way to play War of the Monsters, for sure. I would say go out of your way to play another game we'll get to later, which is a lot like this, no spoilers, but yeah, this game is okay.
there we go.
It's interesting you bring that up. I actually wrote that down in my notes for War of the Monsters. It felt closer to Rampage, just you're facing off against someone.
Yeah, it really did.
In a 3D environment, yeah. That was in my notes.
I thought I was gonna play all the wrong games too, only because like the names are such especially Fighters History. I downloaded a documentary instead of a movie or a game. I didn't know what the fuck was going on there. I was like, what kind of game is this? Is this one of those fully acted games?
Well, Colin, this seems like your kind of game. What did you think of it?
Well, I'll try not to spoil one of my picks for later, but this one was fairly similar both in concept and in gameplay to that game. Basically, play as giant monsters beating up other giant monsters. What's not to like? Plus, it's got like kind of that old school monster movie type deal that's very self-aware. You got like the story in the game cover and the gag movie posters in the game are just like those from old monster movies like King Kong or Godzilla or what have you. Mm-hmm. And that's the vibe the game is trying to get across.
Oh, absolutely. I thought it handled that pretty well for the most part. The fact it came out in 2003 was interesting. Because it just seemed at the time that's so far removed from any of the movies that were actually coming out.
Yeah.
You know, I think if memory serves, the closest thing that came out at the time was Godzilla 2000.
Yeah. And don't forget Eight-Legged Freaks.
I mean, I guess.
To an extent.
Incognito Entertainment, the people that developed this, basically just did Twisted Metal games before this, and it was Twisted Metal Black, Small Brawl,
cool.
what have you. So they didn't really have that much experience in that, but they did know something about combat and just at least 2 things killing each other.
Yeah, pretty much.
While I was playing this, I had briefly as a kid played a game called The Incredible Hulk on the GameCube.
Oh, yeah?
And that's what not only the engine reminded me of that particular game, but how the monsters moved and interacted with the environment. How everything was very destructible, and you could you could pick up the buildings and whack the other monsters with it. That was it all felt very much the same game in that realm. You're just now fighting against another monster. Yeah. I did like how fast the characters moved around the environment, though. Yeah. Instead of the slow, clunky feel, like, I don't know, a newer Godzilla game that came out.
Yeah, when I was playing, the main character I used was a Kineticlops, which is basically a giant eyeball with a big electrical body.
Oh, I called him Zerath. Different. Yeah, totally
I'm always a sucker for playing as characters with electrical powers.
Fair enough.
Sure.
I suspect watching Ernest Goes to Jail as a kid might have had something to do with that. What I liked about Kineticlops...
Well, one cool thing the game did was it does have 4-player simultaneous option.
Oh, yeah?
So you can just have four friends over, just beating the hell out of each other with giant monsters from like the 50s.
If you would have taken the monster part of the sentence over out of what you just said, I would have said, "What do you mean I can't have 4 friends over to beat the shit out of each other? What are you talking about?"
I can invite 3 friends right now and then jump them all.
Yeah, fuck you guys. What do you mean you're retaliating? It's just a video game. Leave me alone.
Now there was one really annoying thing in this game.
What's that?
And that was if you're playing adventure mode or 1-on-1 against the AI, the computer, the AI tend to just run away the whole time in this kind of self-preservation mode, you might say.
Pretty much.
So I found myself just chasing them down more than actually fighting them. Because the adventure mode to me was where the game shined. You could actually, what you did was you would earn in-game currency and unlock new cities. You unlock new monsters to join the cast of the 10 thing roster. You unlock new skins for all the monsters. Sound familiar, Josh, to this cosmetic is okay thing?
Well, yeah, whatever, man.
It was all unlockable in just this cheesy monster game.
Yeah, like
everything was unlockable in it. What a concept. You played the game and unlocked everything?
Listen, okay. I'm not saying that microtransactions are good. I'm just saying if there's going to be any, make it cosmetic only.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I'm not...
I'm just trying to poke a bear here.
I know. It's kind of hard to look at after a while.
Oh, for sure.
Just because it was so dark and everything was all black and
it felt
gray.
like more or less a...
it looked...
a previous gen, but not quite. It was like, it felt in between.
My best way to describe it is it just looked and kind of felt a little muddy.
Ooh, that's a good way to put it, yeah.
So, that's my take on it. I liked it, though.
Well, moving right along into another monster game.
Hold
Colin, why don't we get into your first pick?
I still have more to say.
Oh, you do?
He's not done yet.
He's not done yet. I apologize.
Yeah, in War of the Monsters, my biggest gripe was that you had to hold L1 and R1 to stay locked onto your opponent with the camera, which I did not appreciate.
Oh, you're right. I did forget to mention the camera was crap.
Yeah. And plus it had tank controls with the movement, which kind of threw me off. And then if you weren't locked on, the camera followed your movement, which kind of made me dizzy after a while. Maybe it's just because I'm used to modern third-person cameras, but I still didn't like it.
Oh yeah, maybe that could be. I found myself constantly in blind spots if I wasn't locked onto a target.
Ah, yeah. But yeah. I think that's about all I've got to say.
Now your first pick?
Okay. My first pick was...
Wait, he's still got more to say. No, I'm just kidding.
Wait, I've got more to say.
Don't put words in my mouth, bucko. Anyway, my first pick is Killer Instinct.
Woo!
Yeah.
Insert combo breaker meme real quickly. Just someone do it. Someone
Ultra
do it.
Combo!
Yeah.
Combo breaker.
Yeah, there we go. Now that we've got them all out of our systems.
Combo breaker.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, the reason I picked this one was because I had a very strange obsession with it as a kid, even though I wasn't big into fighting games.
I was so happy you picked this game, actually, Colin.
Ah, yeah?
I wasn't about to pick it.
It's weird.
No, exactly. I was like, okay, Travis had his picks first, and then Kevin put his picks in, and I really wanted him to have my picks, and then Colin picked Killer Instinct. I'm like, oh my god, it made the list. I'm so happy.
Nice.
I'm just gonna say this real quickly, we'll get there, JD. But your picks were boring. Just saying.
Everyone's always got an issue with my 2 game picks. Always, it never fails.
It's okay.
Colin, tell us about Killer Instinct, please.
Well, I'll tell you about my personal experience. I was so obsessed with this game that I actually dressed up as the character Glacius for Halloween one year. I was like, I guess you could say it was my very first cosplay.
Isn't Halloween technically just a giant cosplay, I suppose?
Yeah, more or less. This is from a lesser known property.
Okay.
But yeah, it's I guess the reason I was so obsessed with it is because I thought Fulgor looked so damn cool.
There was a lot there. I do agree with you though. There is a lot of really cool characters in the game. They did like really interesting, and they did feel different. Unlike fucking War of the Monsters. Yeah, they were different, but they all kind of felt the same.
Yeah.
At least that's all I felt.
Well, a little background history on Killer Instinct.
Okay.
It was developed by Rareware and released in 1994.
Hey, I was born.
So you're as old as the game. Cool. Alright, so long origin story short, it was originally meant to be an N64 release, but due to production delays for the N64, it got ported to the SNES and Game Boy instead.
Oh.
And that's after the arcade version, which was created and released by Midway, who you may remember also did the arcade version of Mortal Kombat.
Mm-hmm.
But the Killer Instinct was using technology developed by Nintendo that would later be used for the N64 for their arcade cabinets, which I thought was kind of cool.
That is pretty cool.
And I'll be the first to admit this game is basically a PG-rated Mortal Kombat with more emphasis on combos.
Yeah, I can agree to that.
But it still has enough going for it that it stands on its own, I feel.
No, absolutely. I would say it's got the best of Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter kind of mixed into one, to be honest. This is honestly probably one of the best fighting games that not the only that I've ever played, but I can honestly say one of the best fighting games ever made. You know? Yep.
A lot of people will agree with you on that.
I mean, you guys are free to disagree with me for once, but you know.
Hey man, and we already established I like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My exposure to this was playing it at a cousin's house, and we would always play. And it was really nice to actually play this game again because of like the combos and how easy they were. One of my favorite characters to play was actually Cinder because I was like, oh cool,
Oh, yeah.
It's a fire guy.
Yeah, TJ combo. Yeah.
Surprisingly enough, I had a lot of issues with this game because I have a lot of fond memories with it, no doubt. Just something simple like the black cartridge really stood out to me, going to a friend's house. What game do you want to play? Oh, I want to play the one with the black cartridge. Kind of like Turok on the N64. It just was different.
Oh, yeah.
But, coming from Rare at the time, as the powerhouses they used to be.
Rest in peace.
Oh,
Yeah.
God. Fucking Sea of Thieves. Anyways. I felt like Killer Instinct was even more gimmicky than Mortal Kombat. It was just trying to be all over the place, and it did a good job with it for sure. But it definitely made you feel very powerful in terms of a fighting game. Because Josh, you said that the combos were just so easy to hit.
Well, because you could just hold the buttons down.
definitely...
As long as you hit the right buttons at the right time, you can just hold them down.
Right. I mean, it was definitely a glitch-ass AI exploitation. As opposed to, say, what we did play earlier with Samurai Showdown, where the AI was just punishing. With Killer Instinct, there was 5 difficulty level choices for any type of player, whether you wanted to challenge or not. And I really like this system of a double life bar that the game had.
Yeah, instead of just
so
the
instead
best
of
2
rounds, instead of rounds, it was just you knock the opponent's health bar down halfway, and then you just go right into it. And so instead of resetting the health bars and have another round, you just continue from there.
Yeah, I just thought it was really fun, and it was really hype when you would see someone come back, like they're on their last health bar and they come back with a 2 health bar win. Like I've seen things like that happen, and I've seen total dominations where people just dummy other people with just without even getting hit.
Infina combo.
Yeah, basically.
For fun, I put the difficulty level on the hardest one once I got a handle on the game, and within 2 seconds the computer had me pinned up against the wall in the air and I was dead.
Oh, jeez.
Just could not do anything. Like, well, I am not ready for that level. But when moments like that happened, I noticed that the vocals in the game became quite irritating and annoying. It was just constant grunting and just voices getting spewed at all times.
Oh, yeah.
That got kind of repetitive, because as soon as I noticed it, then I just couldn't get it out of my head. But what I think was the most annoying is the hitboxes fell off, kind of all over the place, depending on what character you were. I mean, it does make sense, but for a fighting game to feel fair, no matter what character you are, this game just didn't have that going for it.
Oh, yeah.
Did anybody else have any similar reasonings like that?
No, because I didn't turn it on to super hard.
Well, Travis, what about you?
You know, I come clean. A lot of people might be shocked. This series is actually a series that I never got into. I was always playing another fighting franchise at the time. And it's not like I never played these games. I played them a good little bit, but I just never really allowed myself to dive in, or just, I was so obsessed with other fighters, like Street Fighter. It was Street Fighter I was obsessed with. But it's fine. What time I did play, and I played the 64 version, I played the SNES version, everyone I played was fun. I think the combos at the time were mind-blowing. I remember the first time I ever laid my eyes, I was like, my God. Because I remember the combos in Mortal Kombat 3 when they came along. Those were awesome. But when you saw these, and it's just the pick up and play aspect, like you touched on about, I totally agree. It was very easy for casuals to play this, pick up and just do combos like they're God or Jackie Chan or something. But yeah, fine series. You know what? I should literally go in and try to maybe review them, or just flat out have some fun and spend more time with them. I need to. Maybe I'm doing myself an injustice.
What do you guys think happened to Killer Instinct? Because it made a return in 2013 with that god-awful Xbox One release.
It came out with an Xbox One released? Oh,
yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, exactly.
I just think maybe Killer Instinct was one of those games that was better off left in the nostalgia kind of era, better off as a one title thing, and then maybe come back as a, I don't even a remaster wouldn't have done it well. I just think like a reporting would have been fine.
I mean, it had a similar attack set of Street Fighter, but it had its fatality type thing, finishing moves like Mortal Kombat. It felt like it was trying to do the best of both
Plus
worlds.
It had the whole knock 'em off the edge thing too, and you can win that way.
Sure, the ring out like Virtua Fighter. But I don't think Virtua Fighter was out yet, because this was 1994.
I don't know. Like I said earlier, I was just born when this game came out, so...
Game Virtua Fighter.
It's funny,
as I look it up.
Sometimes the finishers in Killer Instinct...
Virtua Fighter was out. Virtua Fighter came out in 1993.
Okay. Yeah, like I was saying, the finishers could be pretty funny in this game, because Orchid's finisher is, at least in the arcade version, to unzip her shirt and show her boobs to her opponent with her back to the camera, and they collapse. And in Spinal's
the best fatality.
In Spinal's case, his eyes pop out like a Looney Tunes character and he collapses. And then if it's an Orchid clone, she just acts all jealous. It's like, nah! It's really funny.
But as much as I didn't get a lot of the chance to play this game, I'd still stand by that this is one of the best fighting games ever made. It's just because of that title that it was given, not just by me, but by a lot of people in the fighting game community, as I'm sure, Hibiki, you've maybe agree or heard. I'm sure that when it was remade, it had a lot of hype to live up to, and it just couldn't do that.
Yeah. I did I did really like the soundtrack. The menu theme actually really reminded me of the Fear Factory theme from Donkey Kong Country, which is just as well. They're both Rareware games.
Oh yeah, I wonder if I would put sound side by side if we'd hear a lot of similarities between the two. That's well noticed. Mm-hmm. Now that I think about it, you might be onto something there.
Yeah. And fun fact, most of my experience as a kid with this game was with the Game Boy version. It was pretty much all I had access to because didn't get to go to any arcades that had it very often. But I found the Game Boy version. It didn't have Riptor or Cinder in it, but it was still a lot of fun. I was able to beat it with all the characters as a kid.
Well, how did the Game Boy like translate the game? Was it better or worse? Just nonstop lag?
Yeah, it actually played pretty well, in my opinion. I mean, compared to the Super Nintendo version, it's hard to say because I haven't played that version in over a decade. But
well, that's a shame then.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Well, I think it's time for my first pick. Okay. Unless anyone else has anything to say about Killer Instinct.
No, let's just get on to the boring one.
Aww, come on, it's by far not the worst one on the list.
Okay.
If you say so.
So my first pick was World Heroes 2.
Least favorite game of the cast.
Okay. A Neo Geo game originally, and it was ported to the Super Nintendo and the PC Engine Super CD-ROM, which no one owns, so we played the Super Nintendo version most likely.
Yep.
It came out in 1993 by ADK, assisted by SNK. So 80K didn't have much experience with developing games. They did a bunch of other things, but more notable was the fact that SNK needed to assist them on the port to the Super Nintendo. Its gimmick is your basically famous world heroes from the past, and they're all kind of battling against each other. So that's the whole reason why I looked at this game, based on just that gimmick itself. And it seemed to be... This and Art of Fighting seem to be the franchises that kind of got lost in the fray amongst the Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, King of Fighters, all of those games. So some of the characters you could be in this game were like Joan of Arc and Rasputin, and then there was some stereotypical characters like a football player, and other Japanese characters, Hattori Hanzo, the famous sword maker. And there's some gimmicky anime-type characters, such as the final boss, Dio, a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure character.
Oh, yeah. That far.
So a lot of fun gimmicky-type characters in the game. But how did the game play in the end? In the one-on-one aspect, I thought it was very bare bones and boring. It had a 4-button layout, a very broken grab system. And in order to fix this, they implemented a counter grab system just for that. So a whole button was pretty much dedicated to countering the broken grab system. That I didn't like.
I personally thought that this wasn't a really in-depth fighting game.
It is not.
I did, however, think that it capitalized on the fun that it was trying to have, and I can appreciate that. But otherwise, I just felt like I was playing Street Fighter.
In a way, it was more or less trying to copy that. However, there was a mode added, this is what I ended up playing the most, as opposed to the 1v1, is what's called deathmatch mode. Where this basically being just more or less a boxing knockout style, where there's an arrow on the screen and you try and get the arrow to one side, and then and when you knock your opponent down, the ref, let's call him, will count to 10, just like you would in boxing. That was really cool. I really liked that mode. That was the thing to play, as opposed to just knocking down a health bar. That's what made this game fun. If you played it 1v1, like you said, Josh, it just felt like a Street Fighter knockoff with a broken grab system.
Yeah, but like I said, I didn't really enjoy the game too much. I'll take back what I said. It wasn't my least favorite, but I just felt like it wasn't really in depth, so I didn't enjoy it all that much.
Travis, what did you think of World Heroes 2?
I don't think this game is a Street Fighter clone as much as people might think it is on the outside. If you look into it more, like you said, I think it's cool they try to think outside of the box and use actual historic characters, crazy fucking football players. And you know what? I played World Heroes 2 Jet. I cheated a little bit for the arcade, which is this game just, like I said earlier, Samurai Showdown 5 Special, just an enhanced version, like a Super Street Fighter 2 or whatever. But it's really fun, way better than the piece of shit we're going to talk about in a little bit. That's a straight up Street Fighter clone, but World Heroes 2 is fine. It's kind of a shame it went away. I think it had legs. I think they shouldn't have given up.
It's almost unfair to compare.
Yeah, you're going to have a good time, not as much as you would with one of the more well-known series, of course, but what little time you'll play this game, it's fun for a little while.
That's fair. Yeah, I don't think it's the worst fighting game of all time. It has its little gimmick. It has its deathmatch mode. That's what I took away.
And that's why I put in my. And that's why I put in my notes. I said definitely, like, it wasn't that it wasn't fun, because it capitalized on the fun, and I can appreciate that. I don't know, didn't feel right to me.
Colin, what is your takeaway from this?
I pretty much agree. It's basically Street Fighter. It had its own charm. It felt kind of cartoony in a good way. Like some of the bug eye expressions the characters make when they get knocked down are pretty funny. And the fact that it features a demonic football player who throws and kicks fiery footballs, and I never thought I'd say those words in succession. That's pretty silly.
You've never seen Tom Brady play?
And he also yells touchdown for his air attacks. But yeah, I agree. The grab system was really broken. Like when I was playing as Ryoko, that's how I won all my fights, and that got really boring after a while. But then I played as Fuma, and he kept yelling, "Ora!" Mm-hmm. And that got pretty annoying too. Like, it wasn't bad, but
okay.
I wouldn't call it the greatest fighting game I've ever played.
No, definitely not.
No. No.
So nobody played Mudman or Johnny Maximum?
I don't even remember who I played. I played it very, very little.
I tried at least every character once, and that was fun in itself.
If I would have had more time to play it, I would have, but I'm not too upset that I didn't.
So the football player is clearly the best character.
Oh, obviously.
Maybe to fight against.
Oh, man. I did get to the final boss, and I saw Dio. Like, his name was Dio. He looked like the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure character, for all those anime fans out there.
Yeah.
It was quite ridiculous. I found myself saying, "Oh no, it's Dio! He's back!" Just some anime humor. Yeah. Well, all right. I think that's enough for World Heroes 2.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now to a real winner, Travis. Your second pick.
Really quickly, what does SNK stand for?
I shall look it up. What does SNK stand for? Shin Nihon Kekaku, New Japan Project.
Okay, so alright. SNK it is.
There you go.
Flat out, come at me. The reason this is my other game, this is my favorite fighting game of all time. I put so much time into this with friends back in the day. I literally, around here, a movie theater would have little tournaments on the weekends for fighters, and this was one of the go-to. We would attend them and play them, and it was just reminds me of the good days with my buddies. And the fact that I don't brag about gaming skills a lot, but I was like Rain Man levels with this game on a GameCube I had it for GameCube, and I mastered, believe it or not, I know you call my bluff. Someday I'll try to do a video. I'm not nearly as good as I was in my prime, but that tiny little D-pad on the GameCube, somehow, some way, I was like canceling moves, parrying moves, just dominating. And I mean, a lot of people complain about the art style, okay? And kind of feel like they're just being contrary to be contrary, and I get being diehard fans of a comics or an art style or anything, but I feel like it's not like they did a shit job. I mean, they still did justice to the SNK characters because Capcom took the reins of this release, and then and later on, real quick, there was a release for the original Xbox, SNK versus Capcom 2, which was SNK Playmore's turn at putting out a game, which, you know what, not worth it. I don't even know what it's going for now, but even if it was $10, it's not worth it. It has not even maybe a fraction of the insane amount of characters and the good one we're talking about now, but there's like, it's really disappointing. It's not like it's a bad fighter, it's just the lack of just meat to it just takes away so much from that game. But this is the one you'll want, and what can you say? And not just Street Fighter versus King of Fighters here, other franchises, Final Fight. If you think Marvel versus Capcom 2, just with SNK versus, you know, Capcom as like a Marvel versus DC or like this epic crossover finally, and this was great, and like a lot of people say it's one of the most, it's literally the most fluent fighting game I have ever played. It's so responsive, it's butter smooth, it's beautiful, and it never gets old for me. Another reason for that is because there's this fighting style, different grooves, A, B, C, which every single goddamn character in the game has their own different fighting style, so there's tons of replayability, not just for couch co-op, or just, you know, go training, play the CPU, learn every character, because I'm a diehard fighting genre fan, like I said. That's why I picked this, and yeah, you cannot go wrong. Like I said, my favorite fighting game of all time. Capcom versus SNK 2, you can't miss. Even if this game, I don't even know what it goes for right now because I already have it, but if it was going for astronomical, I would say it's still worth it. Not just for shelf candy, man. It's fun. It's so good.
Oh yeah, Fatal Fury, Last Blade. I'm looking at the roster. I mean, this is a massive roster. I think I wrote down how many characters. 46 characters, question mark, is what I wrote.
Was this one where they go, look at their expressions?
Yes, it was that one. Just look at the expressions on their faces.
Yeah. And I was like, they're all...
No, so it came out in 2001 on a few consoles. It came out on the Dreamcast only in Japan, and that's arguably the best version of the game. A lot of people had an issue with the GameCube strictly because of the controller, and the PS2 version got, like, basically just above average reviews. So the Xbox version, surprisingly enough, got the highest rated reviews for the West, since it didn't come out on the Dreamcast in America. Mm-hmm. So the Xbox version is actually the superior one, surprisingly enough. And that's actually titled Capcom vs. SNK2 EO, referring to Easy Operation. So, because there was an added mode in the game for beginners. But I got to play the Dreamcast version.
And it was in Japanese.
Yeah, which doesn't hold it back very much at all, because
I had to look up the
for sure.
The what was it? The subtitles where like the people would fight each other was hilarious.
Oh my god, it's so comical.
It's so funny.
If just look up a YouTube video of people playing this game with the subtitles on, you have like Chun-Li talking shit about to Mai from King of Fighters, just like your boobs are getting in the way, or give me back my...
was one line. There was one line, Mai, or whatever her name is, when she fights Chun-Li, she says, your thighs are way too thick, and then Chun-Li's like, yeah, well, you look like a cheap horse.
Oh yeah, I just found myself butt mashing just to read the subtitles forever. It was so funny.
I can tell you straight up, there was two for me. One was Chun-Li, because Street Fighter, and the other one was Chang, or Chang. He's the best. Let's not lie, okay. Chang is the best. All you have to do, is spin the ball around, you win.
Yeah, that's the fucking fat character who takes up the whole screen.
Fat character. Spin the fucking ball around and you never lose.
See, I always gravitate when I play King of Fighters games or any sort of SNK. If King is in there, I'm always her. She's the female Muay Thai character.
Mm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I really like her. And then Mai, just because of boob physics. Naturally.
Oh, that was one of the first things I was like. There was one character in there, and just holy tits.
But I think what stood out to me the most as soon as I put it in was the art style of all the characters.
Mm-hmm. It was really neat.
They were just slightly different from what you normally see. But I think it really brought out the best just in looks of all the characters. Not to mention that the game plays smooth as butter.
The only gripe I had about this game, and it's not even more of a gripe, but it was like because the backgrounds are dynamic and like super cool. And I love that, but sometimes it got a little distracting.
Oh, yeah, with how animated everything was moving all the time.
For example, the one in the desert where the cars start jumping over you. Or my personal favorite with the animatronic cowboy.
Dude, the giant cowboy drinking a mug of beer? Hell yeah.
The best one. Yeah, like, especially with the... Well, I mean, mine's chest, you know what I'm saying? But one of the most distracting ones was the desert with the cars. Because they would get so close to the characters. I was like, are they going to fall down on me?
So, one of the cool things this does, because I was wondering how the King of Fighters characters were going to translate to a Capcom button system. And it translated really well how the 6-button style was made. Like, how it was tweaked for the King of Fighters characters. I didn't feel like it deterred from the game at all. Because I have a couple King of Fighters games for the Dreamcast, and I didn't feel like it made one character unfair over another as Capcom versus SNK. What was unique about this was, as I mentioned with the rage gauge in Samurai Showdown, this one had what they called the groove system. So think of like today's Street Fighter games where you have a gauge being built up, you get a super gauge, and then you can activate special techniques. But before this, you have to choose between three move sets, such as a dash, a run, or a guard cancel. So that brought out a lot of different strategy behind all the characters immediately. So it made them feel not one-dimensional. It got you to pick your own kind of fighting style and work off that. So, you could play the same character in 3, 4, 5 different ways, which I really liked. With this large roster, not DLC.
Yeah, because in that case, you get stuck on your best character and you play only them.
So, I mentioned the art style earlier, and when I was reading up on the game, the newly drawn characters of a lot of these drew a lot of criticism from just the fans and at Capcom itself. Saying they like ruined the characters, ruined the look. It wasn't any good. I was shocked about the backlash they all got. And one cool thing that you can actually do, which I need to do this when I get the chance, is if you have a Neo Geo Pocket Color, which is the handheld Neo Geo game or system, if you have the SNK versus Capcom Card Fighters game, which I do, you can actually hook up a link cable to your Dreamcast.
Because, I just got one of those.
And it enables you to unlock more secrets in the game.
Alright, let me go dust off my Dreamcast, and I'll do that.
I just thought that was cool when I read that. I was like, oh my god, I can actually use this game I play for fun, because it's think of it like a Pokemon game, but with SNK and Capcom characters. You do the link cable and you unlock more characters in the game and more things. It's really fun. It's like, oh my god, that's so cool. I wish more games would do that, but the handheld aspect is pretty much done. Besides what the Switch is doing now. Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, but that just speaks to the fighting game community and how you mess something up, they will let you know. Even as something as kind of minute as art style. or at least for particular characters.
Or even the music. That note he played was a C sharp instead of an A flat. How could he? Like, how did you even hear that? Play the fucking game.
Yeah, I played this one the most out of any other game on the list.
Yeah, I enjoyed this one.
Yeah. I messaged Travis on DM and on Twitter. I'm just like, hey, I thought Samurai Showdown was a fun game, and then I played Capcom versus SNK 2. Kind of enough said there. This is definitely the takeaway game from the cast.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, when I played it, I could tell right off the bat this used to be an arcade game. I mean, all the loud music, all the crazy visuals and the sound effects.
Yeah,
very arcadey.
My favorite thing about our old arcade games is the sound effects they would make in the menu. Just going into choose your fighter. Okay, it's like
Just look at the expressions on their faces. So, and the other thing to take away is Chun-Li's thighs are too thick.
Yeah, and that Maya looks like a cheap prostitute. There was another one. There's another one.
Right.
Chun-Li was fighting another. She's fighting another character from Street Fighter. I can't remember her name. Anyways, I think it was Cammy, and she goes, "What did you do?" She goes, "Chun-Li, what did you do last night?" "Oh, I called Andy." "You called Andy? Why would you do that?" "Andy."
Oh no. Well, let's move on before we just nonstop talk about how great Capcom versus SNK 2.
This was the worst game.
This
was the worst game. This one is another one of Kevin's stupid picks. It's Fighter. This is the one that I thought. This is the one that I downloaded. It was a documentary, which wasn't what I was supposed to do. It's called Fighter's History. It was developed and produced by Data East. Released March 1993 on the arcade. In August 1994 on the SNES. And honestly, this game is just a straight up uninspired Street Fighter ripoff. I didn't play too much of it, and honestly, I'm not too upset about that. The weak point system was kind of neat, but lost its appeal after a while, and I ended up just playing Ray and Matlock a few times.
And what was the weak point system?
If you kept hitting someone in their weak spot, you would like stun them. That's really it.
And what was the weak spot generally?
I didn't play too much. I had to look that part up. I didn't even know
Okay,
there was a weak point system. I was like, okay, I'm not playing this anymore because it's so boring and just whatever. So I looked it up and like, yeah, there's a weak point system. If you hit them in the right spot a few amount of times, they would get stunned for a little bit. I was like, wow, cool.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point there with a Street Fighter 2 ripoff. So two things. First of all, Data East was the developer. But particularly the people involved was the Arc System Works guys who make the Guilty Gear series. So maybe this was their learning point. There was a semi-large cast of characters with 18 to unlock total. The weak point system is actually identified by some sort of unique piece of clothing on the character on screen, such as like a headband or a let's say a scarf, just for the sake of it. There was one character in particular that stood out from the rest, kind of like Earthquake. I noticed in Samurai Showdown. The character Ryoko, which was maybe the most unique character in the game. In fact, being that it wasn't a total ripoff of any other Street Fighter 2 character, because you can basically just take Street Fighter 2's roster and put it side by side the Fighter's History roster, and you'll see. Okay, so that's Chun-Li. That's
Ray was. Ray was, I think, a guy with the sonic boom.
Yeah. But Ryoko was significantly smaller than the other sprites on the screen. Therefore, the hitbox was significantly smaller as well. And the fact that her moveset was that of a judo grappler. Every time I came across this character I didn't play this game very long, strictly because of this Ryoko character. She was impossible to hit. The hitbox was too small because of that. And her grappling moves were broken.
Yeah.
So this was a game-breaking character. On top of the fact that Data East was actually sued by Capcom.
Not surprising.
For copyright infringement.
Yeah, sounds about right. Like I said, straight up uninspired Street Fighter ripoff.
For sure.
Hot.
This game, the weak point system was cool. That's it.
Yeah. After like 2 times.
It's a poor man's Street Fighter.
Like, it's like when you pop this game in, it's just, I want to play Street Fighter.
I rate it a good solid 1 out of 10. Kevin, your picks suck. Go home.
Pretty much. Data East went on to, it's particularly Arc System Works went on to bigger and better things. So Travis, you're in agreement then?
Ugh. This was the game I was talking about when it's just a straight up Street Fighter clone. You don't even need to hold up comparison pictures from the 2 characters in the game. You can just look at these characters for 2 seconds and know exactly who they were ripping off, what they were trying to do with not nearly as tight a gameplay. The hit detection sucks. The graphics are boring. The music's uninspired. This game sucks. It's dog shit. And it might be the candidate for worst game of the cast. Ugh. Ugh.
Yeah. Colin?
I'm pretty much in agreement with everything everybody said. I mean, of course,
so
then
glad.
Again, I'm so bad at fighting games that Ryoko was the only character I was able to rack up any wins with.
Well, there you go. If you want to be good at a fighting game.
Yeah. Although, fun fact, this game was actually originally supposed to be called Karnov's Revenge, because that character had an NES game prior to this one. The more you know.
Oh, wow.
I'd say that is a fun fact, but nothing about this game was fun, so now it's just a boring fact. Fuck you.
So it's like the anti-fun game.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you nailed it. You nailed it.
Or Biter's history.
We're beginning to run a little long here, and it's getting a little late. So why don't we just move on to the next game that we aren't just gonna piss all
This
over.
one was fun. This is the second most fun game we played. Colin, my man.
Yes. It is Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee for the GameCube.
I got excited when it said Melee because I was like, oh yes, I'm about to play me some Smash.
Yeah, this game was part of my childhood as well. I remember playing a demo of it at EB Games with a friend of mine. We had an absolute blast. And then later on I would go to rent it from Blockbuster multiple times, and I always had fun with it.
I played this game and watched the Game Grumps play it when John Chon was still on the channel, and it was just, their experience was as funny as my experience playing it.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
I wish Mothra was an actual character, not a summon
Why
character.
wouldn't you just play anything other than Destroya?
Because you haven't unlocked them yet?
Yeah,
no,
you gotta go through adventure mode to
use
unlock.
the cheat code.
Was unaware of that. But,
yeah, so for those that aren't familiar with Godzilla Destroy All Monsters, particularly Melee, came out on basically everything in 2002, except PS2 for some reason. It was developer Pipeworks Software's first game, or at least their real game. There's 12 unlockable monsters, mostly through the story mode arcade, and yeah, I mean, it's a pretty straightforward game. You got your punch, kicks, tail attack, and each monster has a laser attack of some kind.
Yeah.
You just go and fight each other and destroy things.
And throw buildings at each other.
Travis, what did you think of this game?
Right now, literally, and this wasn't planned because obviously I didn't pick the game, but it's Godzilla month on my channel, and this is the one game out of all of them I didn't review. I touched on all of them, but this one I didn't because I knew I was going to do it on here, and I'll tell you this. Maybe the best Godzilla game ever released. This or the 2D Fighter for Super Famicom, and it's completely 100% as advertised. It's just monsters kicking ass. Not perfect by any means. At the time, graphics are great, but I don't think it's held up piss poor, but it's held up okay. It's just so much we've always wanted. Like you guys said, we've always wanted. All we ever got were shitty strategy games or weird chess configurations for NES or puzzle games for the Game Boy, and my God, and it's not like 2 out of those 3 games I just brought up aren't even that bad. It's just make Godzilla what it always should have been, and it's actually really sad and depressing that it took this long, besides the Super Famicom one, to actually make Godzilla games like this. Unfortunately, though, the one we just got was dog shit too. It can join Fighter's history. Godzilla PS4 sucks, but this game super fucking fun. I recommend it any day of the week.
Yeah, exactly.
Much,
This was fun, and I was laughing the whole time I was playing it only because of how silly it was, and the animations were even better. Like in War of the Monsters, you can throw each other around, but in this one, it was even sillier because you would throw them up, and then you would throw them away, and they would spin in their standing model, and it was just hilarious.
The adventure mode was pretty entertaining, I must say. Even for as stupid as the plot was.
Yeah, I think
of this alien invading Earth, and it's just all the monsters are now fighting. Ha 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 ha.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, what else did you expect?
Nothing. Yeah, as you said, Travis, this game is as advertised. You're just in a city. You pick your Godzilla creature and Godzilla movie creature and fight.
Pretty much.
Best game. Godzilla Show Monsters Melee. The best game of this cast.
Favorite Godzilla or favorite monster from this game?
No, I'm kidding. Godzilla 90s.
Anybody? King Ghidorah?
Destroya.
See, I always strive to Megalon.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's mine all day. I had the VHS tape growing up. I watched it all the time.
I don't remember what the monster's name was, but it was the dragon with 3 heads.
Ghidorah.
Pardon?
Yeah.
Now
That's King Ghidorah.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
There's also the mecha version of him, just like Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah.
Ghidorah was
He's
the best.
Final boss of the adventure mode.
Nice.
Gigan.
He's impossible. Fun game, Colin. Must say,
And
fun
the
game.
medal
As goofy
medal
as it
for
is.
best cast game goes to Colin.
Well, we got one more, unless anybody has something else to say.
Yeah, I've just got a couple more things to say. For me personally, the biggest downside is that the characters basically play the same across the board with a few minor differences to how they attack. But honestly, you're having too much fun firing lasers and throwing buildings at the enemy to even care.
There's nothing more satisfying than a solid throw.
I found out some interesting information about the Game Boy Advance version of this game. Jake Kaufman actually did the soundtrack for it. But yeah, you might remember Jake Kaufman did the soundtrack for Shovel Knight and Shantae Half Genie Hero. And both are really cool soundtracks. And
Well, how do you like that?
And speaking of Shantae, Way Forward Technologies is the company who created the Game Boy version, or Game Boy Advance version. The more you know.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Of course, I never played that version myself. All I played was the GameCube version. But it's interesting stuff regardless.
9 out of 10.
Especially if you're a Godzilla fan.
9 out of 10. Go play the game, listeners.
All right, so we got one last one, and then this podcast will come to a close.
If it wasn't for Fighter's History, this would have been the worst game.
Are you kidding me, Josh? See, this is how wrong you are. So my second pick was King of Fighters 95. I felt like there needed to be a King of Fighters on the list. You guys. That's terrible. And I went with 95 because I wanted to play. Jesus fuck.
Sorry, go ahead. I'll stop now.
So it's a Neo Geo game ported to the Saturn, the Game Boy, the PlayStation, and many more. I personally have the Sega Saturn version, and what's interesting about what they had to do with with the console they had and what they were working with was the Saturn version came with a RAM cart to help make this arcade perfect. The Saturn version plays exactly like the Neo Geo due to this RAM cart giving it that extra power. Well, the PlayStation version has suffers from a lot of slowdown, smaller sprite sizes, doesn't play as fast. It has a 24 character roster, which was basically the largest at the time, and a lot of the characters played very evenly. Or evenly.
See, you can say that, and you whatever, but this was another Street Fighter ripoff for me.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, it has...
It's about time someone disagrees with me. Come on.
Yeah, to me, the King of Fighters does its own thing. It's about a team-based mechanic, and it doesn't have to me, it focuses more on a punch-kick system with a punishing special system. So you have to I feel like you have to set up your special to end a fight rather than just spam it, say Street Fighter with Ryo's Hadouken. Mm-hmm. Because if you just spam this the whole time, you never do any damage in King of Fighters. It's much easier to block and counter accordingly. There is one character, as I was playing, that I noticed was hard as shit, and I don't know if this was due to the fact that this was the game-breaking character for the computer, but that was Billy Kane.
I don't remember the people's names. I did enjoy the game, don't get me wrong, but it was kind of boring and repetitive.
Well, it was the second game, and it came out in '95, so it had a lot. Unlike what Street Fighter was doing with just the same game coming out with another character in another mode, King of Fighters always tried to evolve what it was doing based on its predecessor. Whether it was fixing up the mechanics, adding characters, it always added something new. And what separates King of Fighters was the story mode, surprisingly enough, in its Orochi Saga, as it likes calling it. Yes, it was limited in '95. This is where it separated itself from '94. The first one was it added a couple characters, refined some mechanics, and added the story mode. So it gave you more insight on who these characters were. And that's what I like. That's kind of what I like about the King of Fighters in terms of what it does comparatively. What's our... Josh, you've been critical of this game since I even first brought up the words of it.
I was being critical before the podcast even started. I played a few matches and I was like, JD's always got to pick a stupid fucking game on a stupid fucking console, and this always happens. Why does he do this?
Oh, jeez.
Travis, you hearing this guy over here? I know, he's brutal. If you've noticed that about Red Leaf Retrocast, there's always at least one host that basically goes, "Fuck you, JD."
Yeah, because you do the shit to me all the time, and behind the scenes, it's and for the people that have listened already, it's kind of become not even a running joke. It's a thing. Every time I pick a game, JD's like, "No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that."
But I didn't have any problems this time around.
Yeah. Seriously.
Oh, jeez.
Oh,
you can't do this game because I don't like it.
I never said that.
I'm a diva. I'm the Red Leaf Retrocast. I do what I want. You can't pick that game.
Oh, God.
So fuck you in the King of Fighters 95.
Travis, what did you think of King of Fighters 95?
I this twice on this goddamn... I'm sorry, but I read your DM wrong again. I played King of Fighters 98, but most King of Fighters games are the same. This game, I have played this game. The 98's my favorite, by the way. I don't know what it is. It's just so good. But yeah, this is a few years before. But man, at the time, goddamn, the amount of characters, the playability is good. The graphics are tremendous. Obviously, it's... I played the arcade version again. Sorry, I'm a sucker for the arcade version. Neo Geo games, but they're just so goddamn good. They truly are works of art. And this isn't nearly in my top 10 of all time fighting games, but this is really goddamn good game. I would say go out of your way to check it out. If you're going to check out any entries of the King of Fighters series, this is one of them. The only King of Fighters... I've never played a bad King of Fighters game except for the ones on PS2 when they tried to go too weird 2D, 3D. I wasn't a fan of that. They kind of suck. Other than that, man, that's fine. It's fun.
That's one thing I did notice was it did try to find its own niche, and it may have been a Street Fighter ripoff, at least for me. That's how I felt, but at least it didn't do like what not World of Heroes. Which one was it?
Fighters. Yeah, History.
Fighters History.
So generic you can't even remember the title.
It didn't feel uninspired. Like it felt like I had fun first fight I did, but then I was like, okay, this is kind of a boring game.
Josh, you really tested me. Oh no. Well, one thing I really appreciate about a lot of the King of Fighters games is when a King of Fighters game comes out, they are sure to have a full roster. They've been doing that since the beginning. So when I popped in 95, I'm like, wow, even this far back, they had, over 20 characters. And this one implemented even other SNK products, such as Art of Fighting characters and Fatal Fury characters even. So, to bring in other characters from other universes within just the SNK product, I really appreciated that with what King of Fighters 95 brought. So just a fun little tidbit is, if you have an American Sega Saturn and you want to play King of Fighters 95, you can get the Japanese version for much cheaper than the European version, because it never came out in North America. But if you have the Action Replay, what you got to do is boot that up first, and then right as the title screen hit, you have to switch the RAM carts, so the Japanese version will work on your American
Sega
Saturn.
Now, not only is the game stupid, but now I got to go through a whole process to play the fucking thing?
Jeez.
Josh, you're so ice cold with King of Fighters.
I'm sick and tired of your stupid picks. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh man! All right. Anybody else have anything to say? Colin, what'd you think of King of Fighters? I don't think we've gotten to you on this.
He thinks the same thing I do.
Well,
sorry, Colin.
I wasn't really able to find a copy. I mean, heck, as a kid, I never even knew about King of Fighters because there was never a cabinet at any of the arcades I went to. I mean, maybe they were a lot more common in the U.S., but not up here in Canada.
Mm-mm. I didn't hear about this game. Plus, I was also 1 year old when this came out. So,
well, the console versions really didn't hit until '96 either, which is pretty funny.
But yeah, I just watched like a long play on YouTube, and it's very Street Fighter 2-y to me.
Called it. Colin feels the same way I do.
It's not
stupid game.
It's not necessarily a bad thing.
Stupid game.
All right, guys. So what's everyone's... All right, Travis, let's start with you. What was your favorite game of the cast and least favorite?
I'm pretty sure, obviously, across the boards, Fighter's History is the smelliest turd in the room this time on your episode. Yes, it's the worst game, obviously. Like we said, uninspired, straight up Street Fighter ripoff. Beyond. Not even trying to be shy about it. Just boom. Fuck you, Street Fighter is basically what they're saying. That game sucks. The best, besides the one I picked, because it's not fair in my opinion, but Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee was my favorite game on this list. It, like I said, as advertised, fun. Graphics are fine. Playability is not perfect, but fun as shit. And you can beat Jet Jaguar, for Christ's sakes, and so many more classic monsters. Yes, that game is tremendous. Tremendous. And it's all released on PS2, GameCube, Xbox, so many cross-platforms. A little bit versions of games. And there's also like a GBA one a lot of people don't know about. I just reviewed too. Not to keep cheap plugging my fucking channel, but I guess that's why I'm here in a way, right? But that one's really good too. That one's like King of the Monsters, just a more refined version of that. So there's good Godzilla games people don't even know about that are undiscovered gems. Get out there. If you get your treasure hunting hat on, you'll find some good games in the Godzilla series, because there's more than just two. Who knew? But yeah, this game was the best on the list.
Simple and to the point. I like this guy.
Oh boy.
Colin, let's go with you.
JD's like, I don't want to pick. I don't want Josh to
Godzilla's
go.
the best. Fighter's History the worst.
All right, Josh. What is your opinion?
My favorite one. My favorite one was the Godzilla one. Like I said, that was a lot of fun to just throw things around. The worst one, I'm going to say the worst one is Fighter's History, but because it's JD, also King of Fighters 95.
You didn't even pick World Heroes. You went with the one that would hurt me the most. You're so brutal.
No, the worst one is Fighter's History. And I quote, game's dog shit. Hibiki TMD.
Game's dog shit.
Yeah. And
yeah, I mean my least favorite's also Fighter's History. It's as, you know what, I'll even say it in German. It's Hundscheiße.
It gets an honorary
It's dog
it
shit
gets
in
an
German.
honorary shit award.
I think this is the first game on the podcast that we've had all across the board. This is the worst.
No? There's been a few that you, me, and Kevin have disagreed on.
But isn't this the first one where every member of the cast agrees that's the worst game of the cast?
No, not the first, but it's rare. It's rare. I'm not going to say it's the first and only time, but this... We've all picked a game we didn't like, but this is... I'll say it's the first time we've all said the game's dog shit. Except for Colin. I feel like he's too nice to say that.
Well, my favorite was Capcom versus SNK 2, and it wasn't even close. The game was smooth as butter. I loved the large roster. I love the fact that Capcom versus SNK was smooth as butter. I mean, I can't say that enough. It's just incredible. Definitely get it in some way, whether it's on your Xbox, go download it on an emulator. It's a must play, and then go buy the game after you realize that you should feel bad for stealing the game because of how good it is.
And play it in Japanese.
And definitely play it in Japanese just to get those funny subtitles.
Andy!
Oh, plus the bloob physics.
He's at it again, folks. He's at it again. Master Linguist JD at your service.
All right, Travis. So closing thoughts and get
Jesus
your last.
Christ, we just
Shut
met
up,
the
Josh.
guy.
Closing thoughts. Oh man. And last chance plugs. Let's do it. Travis, why don't you start us off?
Man, I had a blast. Thank you guys so much for having me. I hope to come back sometime. All of you guys are welcome on any of my stuff. I know some of you aren't wrestling fans, but my gaming shows, you guys are more than welcome to come on. This is tremendous. Thank you to your listeners, all that good stuff. And yeah, you can follow me once again on Twitter at the Hibiki TMD. Check me out on YouTube, Hibiki TMD. Hit that subscribe. Check us out. Pro wrestling, retro gaming, all the goodness. Yeah, thank you, my friends, and have a good one. Take care, and thanks again.
No problem, man.
Happy to have you on. Yeah. Now, Josh, you yourself have not been on here, so I think you need some plugs yourself.
Yeah, nobody even knows where I'm from other than here. Yeah, I'm Josh. I'm from PowerCord on YouTube. It's a joint channel with a few of my friends. You can find us on PowerCord Show on YouTube. You can find us at PowerCord Gaming on Twitter. I think we have an Instagram. I'm not sure. I just found out myself that I have one. This whole time I had one. I had no idea.
Yeah, we're friends now.
I didn't know that. You can find me on RLR Retrocast. I really don't... The reason I'm not on a bunch of other casts is because I don't really have a lot of time as it is, even for the Retrocast. But you usually find me streaming Final Fantasy. I'm on the quest to do that. I've been doing some streaming.
Yeah, it's been going on for over a year now.
Yeah, it's been going on for a while. We're back in the drawing board for more PowerCord videos, but that's not fully fleshed out yet. But yeah, Twitter, PowerCord Gaming, YouTube, PowerCord Show, and that's and Facebook. But you just look up PowerCord. I mean, we haven't really used our Facebook. We're bad for social media.
Well, okay, this has been the Red Leaf Retrocast. You can find us all from the description below, whether it's Twitter, Instagram now, the Red Leaf Retrocast is there, where I've been posting teaser videos, or teaser pictures, better to say, over some of the games that we're going to cover, some of the anime we're going to cover, maybe some of the wrestling shows we're going to cover on the next cast, etc. You can find that at BowlingJD, Red Leaf Retrocast. Same thing on Twitter. You can find the podcast at a number of places, whether it's YouTube, the Moosen Spiel. That's my personal YouTube page. Every episode is on there. And you can find us at iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Smart Radio, and many others. Just hit us up. Leave an iTunes review. It helps us get the word out there, get more people listening. It will obviously lead to more casts with my amazing host here. Hibiki, it's Travis, otherwise known as your real name.
Wow! Insightful.
It was great. Oh my god.
Insightful.
What? It was great it was great to have you on. I'm very happy with the way the cast turned out. It's getting late and we gotta close this thing out. Thank you, everybody. And Josh has the next pick. Why don't you tell us what the next pick is?
My pick is a very progressive one. No, the next pick we're gonna do is women as the main character or female heroes.
Awesome.
There you go.
Yeah. So sorry, Link, you're not up yet.
Even though the game's titled Zelda.
So.
Well, great. Yeah. Thanks, and see you guys in the next one.
All right. See you later.